Welcome back to another episode of Supergene Unleashed. Today, I'm super excited that I'm joined by my mom. That's right, Stacy's mom. And I bet you're thinking about that song, Stacy's Mom Has Got It Going On. You might be wondering, does Stacy's mom have it going on? Well, tune in to find out. And I'm here to let you know that, in fact, my mom does have it going on. And it's so exciting to be with you today, Mom, because we don't often get the time to see each other throughout the year face to face. But now here we are, sat in Denmark as I just gave birth to twins. So for today's episode, I wanted to bring my mom on the show because she is much older than all of us, and she has quite a lot of wisdom. She was married to my dad for about 43 years. She lived around the world. She worked a multitude of different jobs and industries, and she's really been through so much. So, Mom, first of all, welcome to Denmark. It's your second time here, and welcome to your first ever podcast.
Thank you.
How do you feel?
It's exciting to be here and just, surprising that we're doing this. I guess I never thought about it.
Yeah, you never thought that you might be on a podcast someday?
No, not at all.
So, today we're really going to keep it unscripted with the goal of tackling different things across generations. But I first want to dive into a topic about relationships because obviously I mentioned that my mom and my dad were married for almost 43 years. And that is more uncommon to come across these days. We are living in an era where everything is now digital. It's happening at lightning pace. And if you think about the courting process of when a man meets a woman and is starting to date her, what you experienced decades ago is definitely different from what many women experience today. So can you take us back and just tell us, how did you meet Dad, and what was the turning point, or what made you realize that he was the one?
I knew him most of my life. Our parents were in a club together, and there was gymnastics and dance and, events going on. Really, I knew his older sister a couple more years than I knew him because, we were in a same little ballet kids class for like 3 and 4-year-old, 5-year-olds, whatever. The earliest I remember meeting Jim, Dad was probably around age 11, 12, somewhere in there. We were going to some gymnastics event, and I know his family was going and my family was going, and a lot of people we knew together were going. So I kind of met him there, but, I just thought he was a scrawny kid. Never, there was nothing going on. I mean,
no love at first sight.
No, it was just, just whoever. It was just somebody that I knew. As time went on, our group grew at closer together. Our families joined each other and did more things together. And really, it was around age 16, 17, where we were going to an event again. We were riding a bus and he kissed me and it was like, oh my.
Out of the blue?
Well, yeah, kind of out of the blue. Yeah.
And at that point, had you had an interest in him?
Well, I mean, I thought he was cute then.
Okay.
I mean, at the event, we shared a 7-Up. I mean, It's kind of weird, but I don't know, there's really no reason. I mean, it just happened, and we kind of knew each other, and our friends kind of paired up. I remember hearing people talking about us, that we should be paired up. And I thought, well, we're too young for anything. But like I said, he kissed me one night and it was like, wow, I never had anybody kiss me so nice.
That's so innocent. I mean, sharing a 7-Up is so old school. I mean, these days, I don't know if there's any sharing of anything. I mean, it's hard in a date, even for a man to even pay the bill for a drink. So it's kind of cute and innocent to hear that something like this happened so long ago. So fast forward a little bit, because I think it was roundabout college that you guys officially ended up together.
Yeah.
And so what was it about Dad that made you realize that he was the right person?
Well, I always had fun with him. That's the key. I mean, he made me laugh. He made me happy. Those two things are great. He was kind. He was a gentleman. He opened the doors, on the car to the house, whatever, all the basics of being a gentleman. And, we were just kind to one another and we had fun. We had a lot of laughs. We had a lot of friends together. And, at some point, we just really liked being together. I mean, we played a lot of sports together too.
Okay.
We played tennis, we played pool, we threw darts, played volleyball. So there was a lot of stuff going on.
So really, it sounds like the foundation of your marriage was rooted in fun and making sure that there was joy and excitement on a day-to-day basis and finding happiness in the small things.
Right, exactly. And once we did get married, I mean, I'm maybe jumping ahead, but we decided to get married. Of course, we had about a 1 year plan for it, maybe a little bit more. And, we made the best out of it and we paid for mostly everything for our wedding. So we worked hard and diligently to get that money to be able to have a good time with our family, relatives, friends, whoever. And, I think this is kind of crazy because we actually had over 500 people attend our wedding, which is not normal today. And we were not some,
Well, in some cultures it is, but many cultures it's not normal.
yeah. So, I mean, that was kind of fun. We had a lot of fun with that and just got started on our way because he entered the Air Force and was interested in becoming a pilot. So that's where we just moved our focus to him succeeding at becoming a pilot.
Yeah. And so when you think about your marriage, what would you say is the secret to making it last as long as it lasted?
Never give up.
Never give up.
Never give up on each other. Sometimes you need to be quiet and just let things be. Have patience with another. Of course, there's disagreements. You're different people. You have different desires. You have different goals and you try to put them together and make it work. And with making it work, you have to, have fun. So we always tried to have fun, get people around us that were role models. I think that helped a lot as well.
Having role models that you could look up to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, something that I think is hard to find in this day and age because, definition of marriage has changed so much. Again, I think it's largely attributed to societal changes and, the digitization and globalization of people in general. Different cultures are mixing more because everything is more accessible. People are more transient with their life. But I like what you say about never give up. And I like that because I think that a lot of people do give up in relationships. At least that's what I tend to see from the people within my circle, that a lot of people give up easily because dating apps, again, have made things so much more accessible. So there's kind of this infinite field of opportunity when it comes to finding a relationship. There's this, feeling that it's easy to replace and I can easily find somebody else. So why should I, when the going gets tough, put in the effort? But you're saying that that is kind of one of the marquee reasons that helped you guys last. So why did you not want to give up? Were there things about, the relationship that you just knew you couldn't find in somebody else? Again, maybe it's going back to why you originally thought Dad was the right person, but how did you keep that inertia alive in you to not give up?
One of the most important things was my faith, my religion. My family was a group, and we relied on our families. We intertwined our families, and they gave us a lot of support, moral support. In not that we were arguing or anything, that our families were getting involved or anything, but we saw our families. They were married, they had kids, and we saw them argue, and we saw them laugh together.
Mhm.
So we saw both sides, and we knew it was normal and okay. And they lasted a long time, and we lasted a long time. And you use the word effort. That is like one of the key things that you have to do, is you have to put effort into your life. That gets you to where you want to be, no matter what it is, whether it's your marriage, whether it's your work, whether it's your own personal goals and aspirations for whatever you want to do. Effort is necessary.
And do you think that that would be advice that you would give to people in this day and age? Because effort, when you say that, it again ties to the new way of dating with all of these different apps. And a lot of people don't put in the effort.
Right.
I hear sometimes stories about, women that struggle. They meet somebody, they have a nice date, and then they get completely ghosted and they hear nothing. And one of my friends was even saying, my gosh, just send me an emoji.
Right.
Like it takes no effort at all
Right.
to even send an emoji. So how would you advise people that are navigating this kind of low effort dating scene?
Well, I think when you're dealing with that, you have to look for somebody that has common courtesies
Mhm.
and etiquette. I think that is lacking in our society right now. These are the basics of kindness. I mean, love might be a strong word, but love, especially in America, can have like 5, 6, 7 meanings. You love your animal, you love the forest, you love your mother, you love whatever, but, and you love your husband, or you love your boyfriend. I mean, there's so many explanations of love, but it's just like the basic piece of it is kindness and goodwill towards another person, not the negativity. It's the positivity that is helpful. And that was like the biggest thing that my husband, or Jim, Dad, whatever you want to call him in this conversation, he was a leader for positivity. And he focused on positivity in so many aspects of his life. He always encouraged it, and he always walked away from negativity if he could, or pushed it aside. And sometimes he had to flat out tell people that they were too negative. And, he was a leader in the Air Force. So, that was just part of it. And I've had to do that in my life too, is sometimes you have to be frank in how you're dealing with other people. So that is part of it.
Yeah. I think that's also another thing that is difficult in this day and age is stripping and detaching yourself from negativity. There is so much negativity in the world today, and it's really great to hear that Dad focused on that so much. It sounds like he really inspired you to even be a better person and inspired you to also focus on the positivity in life and everyday life, and making sure that you have a happy life and aren't, having a sad life. And so this is kind of the perfect juncture to move to the next area, which is I referenced that you and Dad were almost married for 43 years. And that's because, unfortunately, my dad passed away unexpectedly. Actually, it's quite an ironic story. And that could even be another episode that we have at a later date about, that experience. But I want to talk about what navigating grief has meant for you, because Dad was such an integral part of your life, and you guys built a family. You built everything together. And at that point in time, you had moved to Florida and built a new house and had dreams for, what you would do in this later stage of life that unfortunately didn't get fulfilled. So when this happened unexpectedly, you were faced with a choice. And you were faced with a choice to either stay stuck in grief, which many couples do. You read about, people who were married for 40, 50 years and, one of them dies and then the spouse actually dies pretty quickly thereafter because they just can't move forward. And the other option for you was to, of course, process what had happened, but reach the point of acceptance. And those are the stages of mourning, is eventually you reach a stage of acceptance and you move forward. What helped you reach the stage of acceptance, and how did you make the choice to move forward after facing such a difficult and shocking and life-altering situation?
It's very intense. There's no other word that can explain really what a person deals with when you have that grief of losing your spouse. You don't know who you are. You don't know what's happening. The good news is somehow a few years before this all happened, I have a niece who is like my best friend. And she and I talk about the craziest things. And so one of the things I had told her is, please, Bobby Joe, just make sure that I don't make any rash decisions in the first year. And I said, well, maybe in the first 6 months. I said, 6 months or a year. I don't know how long it'll take me. I can't even imagine losing my husband. I can't even think about it. But that conversation we had, I don't know how, but it came up. And so I actually kept leaning on that conversation. I had the 6-month timeline. I had the 1-year timeline. And so what I had to do for myself was I had to get into the corner, be alone. I had to go through the mourning. I had to try to be happy and courageous for my children because I knew that they were in shock just as much as I was. That's really the process that I did 6 months, and I did all the wrong thing. I did a lot of wrong things. It's okay. There is nobody that can understand what you go through when you lose a spouse that you love that much. There's no way to put it into words. Nobody understands except somebody else that went through something similar.
It's impossible to prepare for.
Right.
No matter if you did have the conversation with your niece, ironically, as you can say that you had that conversation, but at the same time, because you had never been through that before, you can't imagine how you would feel.
Right. And so what I found myself doing was I actually, read the grief articles. I read the grief books. That really helped me. And I want to say something here now because I know we're talking to an audience that has a job. Well, guess what? When you lose your job, you could change a job or you could get fired or whatever. There's a grief period there. So this grief piece that I'm talking about can be related to many different things in your life, even grief in losing maybe you had a 1-year relationship with a guy or something.
Yeah.
And you're going through this grief cycle. And you can Google and find out what it is. But I was fortunate enough to have a networking group of people in the Chicago area that we actually talked about grief. And so I had that preparation as well. And so I gave myself 6 months. I gave myself a year. And, I almost moved. We looked at homes. I looked at places. I looked at apartments. I looked at houses. I just didn't know what to do.
That's right. I remember that now.
And then I just let it be. And it was like, okay, maybe I'm supposed to be here. And then a wise person told me, Do you realize that it took you over a year to decide to move to Florida? So give yourself time. And I think that's what a lot of us don't do is give yourself what time if you're not ready for something, you can feel it internally and just let it be. And I remember something very crazy that at about the 2 year point, and maybe I'm jumping ahead on what you're thinking about talking about today, but it was right around the 2 year point where I made a decision. And this may be crazy, but my husband and I always went to church on Sundays. We always parked in the same spot, maybe one or two cars over. We were creatures of habit. We walked in the same door. And so what I did is I decided to make a change. And that's what you have to do. You have to change and figure out what that change is going to entail. So what I told myself was, okay, I'm going to park someplace else. So I parked in a different spot. I went in a different door. And when I went in that different door, there was somebody greeting me at that door. I'd never been greeted before.
Okay.
That little bit of a change, it might not seem like much, but just try it. Try parking in a different spot when you go to work. Maybe you'll feel better about it. I don't know. But I was amazed after a while how much that really helped me. That openness to make that first step of change.
Yeah, and what I'm getting from that is it's all about the routine. So when you and dad were married and living your life, you had your routines.
Right.
You had your routines together. You had your routines, on a daily basis. And so going through this grief, it can be very difficult because if you continue with the same routine in the absence of that person, it can almost be too difficult to get yourself out of the black hole because
Right.
you are constantly reminded about, that person and their absence. So creating a new routine is a mechanism for helping you overcome grief and for starting anew. It's not to forget or negate, the impact of that person in your life, but it's giving you a way to have a fresh start and to, create something for yourself that isn't contingent on the person that's no longer there.
Exactly. And that is really the hard thing. You need a lot of private time to just think. And I did take that time. I also decided to read books. I talked about mentors before, but I think reading books for knowledge is imperative. I did that all my life. That's one of the key things that has helped me. And the other thing is now, of course, we have YouTube, we have TV shows, and we can gather information. There's things that come across the news or a show or a movie, and we can grasp things from there to help yourself, deal with this time to really think about what to do. Because a lot of those shows really talk about, change in your life. And so this is what I did is I had to think about change. I had to be quiet in my own spirit and just let it be and accept things that were coming new into my life, whatever it was.
Yeah. And I also want to just go back really quickly to something you said earlier as a call out, which was that you had decided to not make any major change for 6 months minimum. And then it ended up being a year. And I actually remember that when you were looking at apartments. And I think that's a really wise piece of advice. I remember I went through a really bad breakup, and it is like a grieving period because you start to think like, wow, I may never speak to this person again for the rest of my life. And that is a bit strange. And I had actually committed to the same philosophy, even though you and I never talked about it.
No.
I had said the same thing. I shouldn't make any major change for the first 6 months because I need to rediscover myself. I
Yes.
need to find out who am I in the absence of this person. So that's what I want to ask you next is, after such a long time of being with dad, and it's you and dad in this unit, What was something that surprised you about yourself as you rediscovered yourself?
I'm not sure there were surprises if I really think about it. I want to bring up something that I learned in seventh grade from this teacher I had. And she told me, dare to be different. And I've said that many times throughout my life. But this has really been the main pillar of who I am is dare to be different. Be bold, be positive, go for it, try it, believe in yourself. There's so many ways to say it, but that was really the most helpful thing that I've had in my life is that I bring that together. And I've heard songs on it. You got to be bold, you got to be brave. These things come out and this is what you need.
And so is that what came out in this grieving process? You remembered this particular piece of advice and it helped you kind of pick yourself back up and say that, okay, I can empower myself. I can, move forward. I can, be strong.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There can be a lot of negativity around you when you're going through a grieving period. Here's one thing I've got to tell you before anything else, but don't listen to a lot of the people around you because they don't know what to say to you. Realize that. And that realization helped me because I had people say the craziest things to me. I had somebody say to me after like 2 months, "Oh, I hope you get married soon."
Oh,
And
wow.
start, start dating and get married. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? And so, no, just let that stuff go, roll off your back. But,
Yeah,
just,
people don't know what to say. Sometimes
yeah,
people just say something because they genuinely don't know what to say. They don't know how to react to
yeah,
the situation.
they want to be kind and, just let it be. And so, I mean, that's the main thing that I've been trying to do though, is to just try to stay positive and, keep that being bold and knowing that I can do it. I mean, there have been crazy things in my life that I never thought I could do or never thought I would go through or whatever. And so I just each time take a minute and just go for it and realize that you have it in you. I'm lucky. My older brothers, they were very kind to me in different ways in teaching me that you are a good person, you have good qualities and you have it in you. You have the strength in you. I don't really know where it came from, but I saw them doing things that I never expect them doing. And so then I thought, well, shoot, I'm their sister. I can do it too. So, I didn't really think about male or female because people think, if you're a guy, you can do this. You're a woman, you can do that. No, no. I just thought I could do it no matter what it was.
I love that. I think that, people get clouded by capability and capacity in the sense that sometimes they let their fears and imposter syndrome take over. And instead of going for it, they get stuck in this conundrum of what if, what if, this bad thing happens, or what if I mess up, or what if I, don't get that. But I like to think of it as, but what if everything goes right? You know, people often think about all of the bad things and, all of the negative outcomes of a possible decision. But I think we need to reframe things on what if it does all work out. And so it's really great to hear that you had that inspiration from such a young age, especially from your brothers, and that you felt like you could do it too, because I think that that probably gave you a lot of the strength and resilience that was needed to find your feet again and, really embrace and become your own person. I want to open up something a little bit more unique that you and I have talked about before. And that is that dad actually visited you in your dreams.
Yeah.
And there's kind of this whole question mark that obviously all of humanity has about the afterlife. And this could really open up a huge can of worms here. But what I really have found comforting in your grief journey are all of the stories that you've told me about with your dreams with Dad, and kind of this reassurance where he's visited you and made you know that everything is okay. Can you maybe talk about one of the dreams that you've had and what this dream has done for you as well as part of the grief process, and how it has helped, I guess, help bring you comfort, from the other side? And do you believe that it's real? Because definitely there's a lot of skepticism. And just one last thing on this really quickly is I'll never forget that when Dad passed, I think it was 3 weeks after it happened, I had a very intense dream. And basically my whole body felt paralyzed. And I remember it so vividly. And basically Dad and I were on a train and he was seated next to me and the train was moving. And he was just smiling and no words were spoken, but the atmosphere of that interaction was extremely comforting to me because I felt like he was okay, he was at peace, and he was happy. And what was ironic about this is the fact that, here we are many years later and I don't, remember even the dream I had last night, but yet this dream is so profound in my memory. But I remember that exact same night, he also visited you too. And subsequently, you've almost had this relationship from the other side. So let's talk about it a little bit.
This is something that I've kept fairly quiet. I have an inner circle of people that I have told my experiences to. And, somehow I know, I don't know exactly which was the first dream that I had, but the one dream that I remember the most was profound. You used the word, and it actually had Dad and his best friend Naboisha in the dream. And luckily, I got to back up here a second, that somehow I watched something on TV or somebody told me that I should, if I have a dream, that I should write down notes in a journal. So I had started journaling some of these little clips of dreams because my husband had shown up, maybe just his face or just like an image of him, just like a quick visit, and nothing really profound or no words or no actions or anything, but just these quick little things. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I think I dreamt about him. And so I started to write this journal. And, I do remember that you and I had, dreams on basically the same night. So, I mean, this may have been the one, but it was the two men and me. And the scenery was very weird. It was like at a counter, like it went down one way and across another. And behind the counter were the two men, my husband and his best friend, and they were standing there. And I was on the other side, and I stepped away for a minute, and then I came back. And here's one piece that's really important. Most people can't remember more than, 10, 15 seconds of their dream. I mean, I could write 5 and 6 pages on a journal and, journal size note. And I remember everything, and it would just start coming out. But on that dream at the end, one of the things he said is, "You're on your own now."
Oh, wow.
He used those words. And so those words have been in my head imprinted ever since that dream came. But yet at the end, the message was, everything's going to be all right.
Yeah.
And so those two things, I thought, oh my gosh, this is like, how can this even be? How can I get this kind of a message? I mean, I would never, all I can tell you is I would never just like think this up. it's not something I'm sitting here on the couch and thinking about what's my dream going to be next week or something. These things have just come to me, and I've had multiple dreams. I had another dream where, we were looking through glass windows out at something and we were just together and smiling. I mean, it was simple, but yet again, that message, I got the words, everything's going to be all right. So somehow in the spiritual realm, there is a way for them to communicate this to us. I don't know. My brain wasn't using those words before. So, I mean, that's just not how I am.
Yeah, it's hard. It's almost out of the capacity of the human brain.
Right.
But the fact that the message communicated to you was you're on your own now is really profound. And it's really interesting and fascinating that, this message has, been clear to you since that point in time. One of the ones that I remember was that you were basically getting into the red Jeep. You have a red Jeep.
Oh, yeah.
Dad had bought the red
Right.
Jeep. And basically he opened the car door for you and you got in, but then he closed it. He said, "I'm sorry, but I have to go another way."
Yes.
And that to me is
Oh
so crazy because to what you just said about it's not like you're sitting on the couch and, coming up with the story of what your imagination might dream about that particular night. So that dream for me always stood out as something that was just really telling in terms of the possibilities of there being this spiritual realm or afterlife that's very difficult for us to even conceptualize.
Right. And, just to mention, I mean, I have written in like 3 journals full of dreams. These are not just 1 or 2. And it's been associated with people that I've met. In fact, in the Jeep one, I do remember there was another person with dark brown hair that was sitting next to me in the driver's seat during that dream. So I'm contemplating that it was the new person that I met.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, it definitely leaves, the mind to wander, but I am really, proud to see that you have taken, this life experience and turned it into something positive. I want to shift back to the life that you did have and you have led. Obviously, I won't mention your age, but you have,
whatever.
quite a few years on me. So reflecting back, you had quite a unique life with Dad and moving around and seeing and experiencing different things. What did you learn about in terms of adapting to new environments, cultures, and people?
The words I always heard from Dad: cherish change, embrace it, embrace change. He always said those cliches, if you want to put it that way. He knew that we were going to be going through a period of change. Things were going to be hard. He prepared me for it. He always talked about, okay, we don't know this, we don't know that, but we got enough money to do this. We'll be okay. So that was really part of it, is just getting the encouragement. And, we encouraged each other in so many ways because, he told me, and I'm maybe going sidetracking here, but, encouraging one another, and this can come from anybody, is really important, especially in today's world, because so many people can put you down. So, and tell you can't do this or you can't do that. I just pushed that aside. I always did, and just embraced the change that was facing me, and, kept going forward, kept trying to be positive, even though I had negativity inside of me. Boy, I could be, so negative in my own space for a while and just think, how are we ever going to do this? But yet, we just kept going. We kept striving. We kept putting in the effort. I'm going to go back to that word, effort, and the energy. You need energy to survive and do these things. And so when you put forth positive energy, it comes out good.
Yeah. Cherish change. I don't know that I ever heard Dad say that, but I absolutely love it. Has a nice ring to it. Cherish change. But what I love about it is that people, humans, as a species, are so hardwired to oppose change. People are creatures of habit.
Right.
They don't like change. And I think that that's one of the things that I'm most grateful of in terms of being raised by you and Dad is that I am somebody who does embrace change. I more or less have followed in your footsteps with, being, able to move and live abroad, moving as an adult and not knowing anybody, but also doing it by myself because I hadn't met my husband until I moved to Dubai. And I think that cherishing change is something that more people could stand to do in their life and that they would maybe regret not doing because, again, people are so afraid of taking that leap and going after something because they're too afraid of failure. So, have you ever had anything in your life where you took, that leap of faith and you were afraid of failure and maybe you did fail or maybe you didn't fail, but what's the life lesson that you could share with the audience today about taking that leap of faith and embracing that change in environment that you could also have that big failure too?
I have two things. The first big thing, the fear of failure, was in gymnastics. I had another girl that came into the gym many years after I did. I started out very young. And, in those days, we weren't doing anything crazy difficult,
Mm.
but she could do something in the vault that I couldn't do. So we went to competition together and I really pumped myself up. I put in the effort. I practiced. I did everything. I told myself I could do it. I did it. And I got a higher score than she did. So that's like, I was so afraid of not beating her.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the one that had the higher score in all the events. She beat me in a couple of them, but I beat her by one position and I got a placement higher than hers. And so I was really excited. So that was like my biggest first thing. And then I guess in the work world, I was pegged to be a project manager. What do I know about being a project manager? Nothing. So I did a lot of things. This is another, piece that I can tell you. Don't be afraid to just be stuck in a hole. If somebody tells you that you're a banker or that you're a salesperson or customer service or, whatever it is that you do, don't peg yourself only in one way. I mean, even a lawyer or a doctor, you can do other things other than that one thing. And, I had a vice president that said, "Hey, I want you to take on this and we're going to learn. We've got some new tools on the computer and we want to teach you how to be a project manager. We want to send you to this school." And, I got this big project. I had nothing. I knew nothing about it. I was scared. I studied my heart out to pass all the tests, whatever I had to do to complete the classes and everything and go through everything. But for me, that was one of the biggest things I've ever been through was to complete that project and bring it through to fruition. And we all learned, a lot of us learned from it. And, there was a lot of fear taking on this big thing.
Yeah. I think that's something that's also super important in today's climate because a lot of people have been, society has shaped adults that you go to school for a specific vocation, any type of work, like you mentioned, doctor, lawyer, salesperson, etc. And a lot of people pursue that career path, but things are being heavily disrupted, especially in the wake of AI.
Yep.
And I like what you're saying about not pegging yourself into one particular thing and opening people's eyes to the possibility that they have skill sets that are transferable, and to not be afraid to reposition yourself, because it is difficult. A lot of people are, facing redundancies, job loss, and they
Yeah.
think that they can only pursue this particular path. So I hope that people listen to this and take this as a message of inspiration to, sit down with a pen and paper and write down your skills and try to dream about how can those be transferred to something else. And it's all about how you reposition yourself. I think that that's something that a lot of people need to use now, and to not be afraid to do that.
Well, actually, history repeats itself. And so there was a huge recession period where a lot of us in my older age group, we went through we lost our jobs. A lot of us, both my husband and I were without a job for a while. And we're like, okay, now what do we do? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we have to pay for our house. We have cars. We have kids going to college. We have this and that. And we didn't care. We just went for something. And what we found out was it didn't really matter what the pay was, is when we went into that job, it's what can we learn from the people in this job? What are they trying to show us? And surprisingly, I learned some of the highest customer service
Mm-hmm.
skills that I've had in some of these lower paying jobs that I ended up having to take. And it was okay because I look back and I think, oh my gosh, I've been relying on these skills and abilities that these people taught me that I never even thought about. So yeah, don't be afraid to go for it. And not that I was stuck in that job for very long. I mean, my husband and I, went in, and maybe I can tell you that he was in a position and maybe for like 6 or 7 months. And all of a sudden, once they realized who he was and what capabilities he had, he went up like 3 levels. So, it's possible. Even in today's age, it was possible back then. It's possible today. So don't just label yourself. This is the thing. People label you and you label yourself. So don't do that.
Yeah, I completely agree, is to not get stuck in the label. What's something that you'd tell your younger self or women today about aging with confidence and grace?
Be confident in yourself. Go for it. Force yourself to not be afraid and stay positive. You can do it. Anybody can do it. You can do it. You just have to put forth that inertia, that energy, that, whatever you need to put yourself into it. Be bold, keep going. Don't give up.
That's really great. And I think, Mom, we could continue to go on forever. There's so much that we could talk about. But one final question I want to ask you is, what do you hope that people remember about you?
Part of me as a person, the key elements really are, teaching others, training others. I've always had that thread through my life, is somehow I've had that ability to teach others a multitude of things. So that's a big piece of who I am. Uh, People tell me that I work with and that I'm around, that I'm positive, that I have positive energy. I want them to remember that and to try to apply it to themselves, really to keep that positivity, even though there is grief in life. Yeah, I mean, we have fear, we have grief, but we can overcome those things. And, I guess that I was a good person, that I was kind, and engaging. I don't know.
Yeah.
Really.
I don't think that's hard to achieve. I think that you have achieved all of those things. And, it's really inspiring, again, just to hear about how much you focus on positivity, because I think that in today's age, there is so much negativity in the world and the news, and people having difference of opinions, and people that are, really on each other's backs just if you don't have the same opinion or viewpoint, but you're coming from a place of peace and love and kindness, and understanding and acknowledging difference in others, but also saying that, you don't have to be the same at the end of the day.
So to go along with that, it's okay to be different. It's okay.
Yeah.
And that is really, what I always kept in the back of my mind is I'm different than somebody else, unique, whatever. But I think that's really a big piece of it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.